I still remember the exact moment my world shattered. It was a Tuesday afternoon, and the autumn rain was tapping gently against the kitchen window. I was making tea, chamomile, the kind my mother used to make when we needed comfort. My hands were steady as I poured the hot water, but inside, everything was breaking apart. The adoption papers sat on my kitchen table, right next to the sugar bowl. Such ordinary things holding such extraordinary pain. My sister Clara's signature was there, clear as day, right below mine. But the dates told a different story than the one I had believed for 17 years. I picked up my phone to look at the photo I had taken that morning. My daughter Emma, my beautiful Emma, laughing at her high school graduation rehearsal. Those same green eyes that I had always said came from her father's side. That same gentle smile that reminded me so much of someone I couldn't quite place. Now I knew exactly who she reminded me of. The truth had been hiding in plain sight all along, in family photos, in whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room, in the way Clara could never quite meet my eyes when we talked about Emma's biological parents. We had all agreed back then, Clara and I and her husband James, that it would be better if Emma never knew the full truth about where she came from. We thought we were protecting her. We thought we were protecting everyone. But secrets have a way of finding daylight, don't they? They push through the cracks like weeds through pavement. And once they're out, you can't push them back down. I set down my teacup and picked up the letter that had arrived that morning, the one from my late aunt's estate. She had left something specifically for Emma's real mother, it said. Such simple words that changed everything. The rain continued its gentle rhythm against the glass. Somewhere in this same city, my sister was probably going about her day, not knowing that I finally knew, not knowing that after all these years, I had discovered what she had done, how she had orchestrated everything, how she had stolen not just my child, but 17 years of truth. But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how we got here, I need to go back to the beginning, back to when Claire and I were young, and our biggest worry was who would get to wear Mom's pearl necklace to prom.
Clara was always the golden child. I don't say that with bitterness. Well, not anymore. It was just the way things were in our family. She was 3 years older than me, with perfect grades, perfect hair, and that perfect way of making everyone feel special when she talked to them. I was the quiet one, the dreamer, the one who spent hours in the garden with Mom, learning the names of flowers and how to make things grow. We grew up in a small house on Maple Street, the kind with a front porch that creaked when you walked on it, and a kitchen that always smelled like something good was baking. Our parents, David and Rose, were high school sweethearts who still held hands at the grocery store. They built their life around us girls, around family dinners and Sunday church, and the belief that love could solve any problem if you just had enough of it. Clara married James right out of college. He was everything our parents hoped for. Stable, kind, from a good family. He worked at the bank downtown and wore ties to dinner. They bought a house 4 streets over from our parents, with a white fence and room for children. Everyone said what a beautiful family they would have. I took a different path. While Clara was picking out china patterns, I was backpacking through Europe, working odd jobs, falling in love with a musician named Marcus, who had eyes like the ocean and promises like smoke. I was 23 when I came home that Christmas, quieter than when I'd left, carrying a secret I hadn't told anyone yet. I was pregnant. Marcus was gone by then, disappeared into the life of another girl in another city. His phone number didn't work anymore. The address he'd given me led to an empty apartment. I stood in my childhood bedroom that December, looking at the reflection in the mirror where I'd once tried on prom dresses, and I saw a stranger looking back, a frightened girl pretending to be a woman. It was Clara who noticed first. Of course it was. She found me throwing up behind the garage after Christmas dinner, holding my hair back without saying a word, When I finally stopped shaking, she helped me to my old room and sat on the bed beside me. "How far along?" she asked so gently. "3 months," I whispered. She held me while I cried. She didn't lecture me or tell me how disappointed Mom and Dad would be. She just held me and said, "We'll figure this out together. That's what sisters do." The thing about Clara and James was that they'd been trying for 5 years to have a baby. 5 years of doctors and tests and procedures that led to nowhere. I'd watched my sister's heart break a little more each month, though she never complained. She'd just smile and say, God had different plans for them, maybe adoption someday when the time was right. So when Clara suggested it, it seemed like fate. Divine providence, even. "Think about it," she said one evening in January when I was 4 months along and couldn't hide it much longer. We were in her kitchen, the one with the yellow walls and the window that looked out onto her perfect garden. "You're not ready to be a mother. You've said so yourself. And James and I, we've been praying for this." She made it sound so simple, so right. I could have the baby and they would adopt. The child would stay in the family, grow up 4 straights from grandparents who would love them completely. I could still be part of their life, as Aunt Sarah, the fun aunt who traveled and brought back presents from faraway places. Clara and James had the stability, the house, the desperate want for a child. I had nothing but fear and a father who'd vanished like morning mist. "You could stay with us during the pregnancy," Clara continued, her voice warm with hope. "We'll tell everyone we're adopting from a young woman who needs help. It's not even a lie. And after, you can go back to school, travel, live your life. You're so young, Sarah. You have so much time ahead of you." I looked at my sister's face, at the yearning there, at the love. I thought about the life growing inside me, the life I wasn't prepared to shape. I thought about Clara's empty nursery, already painted soft yellow, waiting for a child who never came. "Okay," I said, just like that. "Okay." The next months passed in a blur of doctor's appointments and preparation. Clara came to every single one, her hand holding mine during ultrasounds, her voice asking all the questions I didn't know to ask. She bought prenatal vitamins and made sure I took them. She cooked nutritious meals and read baby books aloud in the evening while James worked late. We told our parents the partial truth, that I was pregnant, that the father was gone, that Clara and James would adopt the baby. Mom cried, but not from disappointment. From relief, I think, that we had found a solution that kept everything in the family. Dad just hugged me and said nothing needed to change how much he loved me. The adoption lawyer Clara found was discreet and efficient. A friend of James's family. Someone who understood the delicate nature of private adoptions. The papers were drawn up. Everything was legal, proper, above board. Clara insisted on that. She wanted everything perfect for this child. Emma was born on a humid July morning after 14 hours of labor. Clara was there, holding one hand while Mom held the other. When the nurse placed that tiny, perfect person on my chest, something inside me cracked open. A love I didn't expect, fierce and immediate and terrifying. "She's beautiful," Clara whispered, tears streaming down her face. "Oh, Sarah, she's perfect." I looked down at my daughter, because she was mine for those few precious moments, and memorized everything. The way her tiny fingers curled, the sound of her first cry, the weight of her, no heavier than hope itself. When they took her to clean her up, Clara followed. When they brought her back, Clara was the one holding her. That was what we had agreed, to avoid confusion, to make the transition easier, to protect everyone's hearts. I signed the papers 2 days later, my hand surprisingly steady. Clara signed too, and James. The lawyer notarized everything with a satisfied smile. "A beautiful arrangement," he said. "The child will be so loved." And she was. Emma grew up surrounded by love. Clara was a wonderful mother, patient, devoted, everything I probably couldn't have been at 23. I became the aunt who lived in the city, who showed up for birthdays and holidays with too many presents and stories of adventures. The first crack in our perfect arrangement appeared when Emma was 3 years old. It was Thanksgiving, and the whole family had gathered at our parents' house. Emma was in the living room, playing with blocks while the adults cooked and talked. I heard her laugh, that bright, bubbling sound that always made my heart squeeze, and I looked over to see her building a tower, her little face scrunched in concentration. "She has your nose," Mom said quietly beside me, so quietly I almost didn't hear it. I froze, my hand still on the potato peeler. "What?" Mom glanced toward the living room where Clara was now sitting with Emma, helping her stack the blocks higher. "Nothing, dear. I just meant family resemblance. We all look alike, don't we?" But I saw the way she looked at me, the sadness in her eyes, the knowing. Mothers always know, don't they? Even when we don't tell them the whole truth. As Emma grew, the resemblances became harder to ignore. She had my stubborn streak, the way I'd dig in my heels when I believed something was right. She had my love for art, spending hours with crayons and paper while other kids played outside. She even had my weird habit of humming when she concentrated, something Clara found endlessly amusing. "Nature versus nurture," she would say with a laugh when someone commented on it. "Amazing how adopted children can pick up family traits." But sometimes I'd catch James looking at Emma with an expression I couldn't read, something between confusion and recognition. He'd been told the same story as everyone else, that Emma's birth mother was a young woman who couldn't care for her, who'd chosen Clara and James specifically. He'd never asked for details. Maybe he didn't want to know. When Emma was 7, she asked about her birth parents for the first time. We were all at Clara's house for Sunday dinner, and Emma had just finished a school project about family trees. "Mom," she said to Clara, her voice curious but careful, "where are my first parents? My birth ones?" The table went silent. Clara's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. James cleared his throat. I felt my heart hammering against my ribs. "Well, sweetheart," Clara said, her voice steady and warm, "your birth mother was very young. She loved you so much, but she knew she couldn't give you the life you deserved. So she made the hardest, bravest choice a mother can make. She chose us to be your parents." "Is she dead?" Emma asked with that brutal honesty children have. "No, honey. We don't really know where she is now. She wanted you to have a fresh start, a whole new life with us." Emma thought about this, twirling her spaghetti on her fork. "Maybe she thinks about me sometimes." "I'm sure she does," I said, before I could stop myself. Everyone looked at me. "I mean, how could she not? You're pretty amazing, Em." Emma smiled at me, that trusting, open smile, and went back to her dinner. But Clara's eyes stayed on me a moment longer, something unreadable in them. The years passed this way, in a careful dance of truth and omission. I built my life in the city, became a graphic designer, dated men who never quite measured up to the ghost of what I'd lost. Not Marcus. I'd never loved Marcus, not really. But Emma. The daughter I saw once a month who called me Aunt Sarah and showed me her report cards with pride. Clara would send me photos constantly. Emma at dance recitals, at soccer practice, at school plays where she always played the lead because she had that same magnetic quality Clara had, that ability to draw people in, to make them feel seen. I saved every photo in a folder on my computer labeled family because that's what she was, even if the exact shape of it was a lie. When Emma was 13, she went through a rebellious phase. Normal teenage stuff. Talking back, slamming doors, insisting that nobody understood her. Clara would call me frustrated and worried. "She's just so
angry lately," she said one evening, her voice tired. "I don't know where it comes from. James and I have given her everything." "Teenagers are angry," I said, remembering my own furious adolescence. "It's how they figure out who they are." "But she's so different from how I was at that age. I never—" She paused. "I just want to understand her better." "Maybe she's more like me," I said, trying to make it sound like a joke. I was a terror at 13. "Yes," she said slowly. "Yes, you were." There was something in her voice that made me uneasy, a weight to it, a calculation. But then she laughed and changed the subject to Emma's upcoming birthday party, and I pushed the feeling aside. The real tension began when Emma turned 15. She had become interested in genealogy, inspired by one of those DNA testing kits her friend had gotten. She asked Clara and James if she could do one too. "I just want to know," she said at Christmas dinner, her eyes bright with curiosity. "Like, what if I'm part Irish or Italian or something cool? And maybe I could find some biological relatives. Not to replace you," she added quickly, looking at Clara and James. "Never to replace you, just to know." Clara's smile was perfect, practiced. "Oh, honey, those tests can be so unreliable and expensive. Maybe when you're older." "They're only like $100, Emma protested. "I could use my birthday money." "The privacy concerns, though," James interjected, his banker's mind always practical. "These companies sell your genetic information. It's not safe." Emma looked disappointed, but dropped it. Until she looked at me. "Aunt Sarah, what do you think? Wouldn't you want to know where you came from?" I felt Clara's eyes on me, sharp as glass. "I think," I said carefully, "that family is about more than DNA. It's about who loves you, who raises you, who's there for you every day." "That's beautiful," Mom said, but her voice was strained. Emma wasn't satisfied, I could tell. She had that look, the one I'd recognize because I'd worn it myself at her age, the look that said she knew the adults were keeping something from her. Later that evening, I found Clara in the kitchen, washing dishes with violent efficiency. "Thank you," she said without looking at me, "for what you said about family."
"Clara, she doesn't need to know, Sarah. It would only confuse her, hurt her. She's happy." "I know," I said. "I agree. I've always agreed." Clara turned to face me then, and there was something in her eyes I'd never seen before, something hard and protective and a little bit frightened. "Good," she said, "because I've worked too hard to build this family. We all have our roles to play. Let's not forget that." It was the first time Clara had ever said something that felt like a threat. That spring, I got a call from Emma. She'd gotten my number from Mom's phone and was calling in secret from a friend's house. "Aunt Sarah," she said, her voice hushed and urgent, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." My stomach dropped. "Em, what's wrong?" "Do you know who my birth mother is? Like, really know?" I closed my eyes, gripping the phone. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because Mom gets weird when I ask about it, and Dad changes the subject, and Grandma looks sad, but you always look guilty." Guilty. The word hit me like cold water. "Emma, your parents love you." "I know that. God, I know that. That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking if you know who she is. My birth mother." The lie sat right there on my tongue, ready and familiar, but something in Emma's voice, something desperate and lonely, made me hesitate. "It's complicated," I finally said. "Everything is complicated when you're adopted," Emma said, and the sadness in her voice broke my heart.
Sometimes I feel like everyone's in on some secret except me. Like you all know something about me that I don't know about myself. Em. Forget it, she said quickly. I shouldn't have called. Please don't tell Mom. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, holding my phone, wondering if I should call Clara, wondering what the right thing was anymore. In the end, I did nothing. I kept the secret, like I always had. But secrets are heavy things. They accumulate weight over time, like stones in your pocket, until one day you realize you're drowning and you never even saw the water rising. The lawyer's letter about my aunt's estate arrived 2 weeks ago. Aunt Patricia, my father's sister, had died in Florida, where she'd retired. She'd never married, never had children, but she'd loved Emma fiercely from afar. She'd also been the only family member who'd ever questioned our arrangement. "That baby looks just like Sarah did," she'd said at Emma's first birthday party after a few glasses of wine. "Spitting image." Clara had laughed it off, but Aunt Patricia had pulled me aside later. "I wasn't born yesterday, girl. I know whose baby that is, and someday that child deserves to know too." I'd begged her not to say anything, and she'd kept her promise. But apparently, she had left one final card to play. The lawyer's letter was brief and professional, but one line stood out. "Mrs. Patricia Williams has left specific items for Emma's biological mother, with instructions that they be delivered privately." Enclosed was a copy of the adoption papers, the original adoption papers. Not the ones I'd signed, but another set, earlier ones, with different dates, with Clara's signature not as the adoptive mother, but as a witness, with James's signature not as the adoptive father, but as the biological father. I stared at those papers for what felt like hours. The dates didn't make sense. Or rather, they made too much sense. They painted a picture I'd never wanted to see. The papers were dated 3 weeks before the ones I remembered signing, 3 weeks before I gave birth to Emma. And there, in neat, typewritten letters, was a line that changed everything. Biological father, James Robert Harrison. Biological mother, Sarah Marie Coleman. My hands shook as I picked up the second document in the envelope. It was a letter, handwritten in Aunt Patricia's careful script. "My dear Sarah, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And perhaps that's for the best. Some truths are easier to hear from the dead. I've kept this secret for 17 years because I hoped Clara would find the courage to tell you herself. She hasn't. And that child is almost grown now. You deserve to know what really happened. Check the hotel records for the Riverside Inn, December 23rd, the year before Emma was born. Room 237. The truth always leaves a paper trail, my dear. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you while I was alive, but you were so young and Clara begged me. She begged me and I was weak. Forgive me." December 23rd, the year before Emma was born. I knew that date. It was burned into my memory, though the details had always been fuzzy. Clara's office Christmas party. I'd been visiting for the holidays, fresh off my breakup with Marcus. Clara had insisted I come with her and James so that it would cheer me up. I remembered drinking too much wine, feeling sick, James offering to take me back to the hotel while Clara stayed to network with her bosses. I remembered waking up the next morning in my hotel room, still in my dress, with the worst headache of my life and gaps in my memory. James had left a note saying he'd made sure I got to my room safely, that Clara would check on me later. 3 weeks after that, I discovered I was pregnant. I'd assumed, God, I just assumed it was Marcus's. The timing had seemed right. We'd been together until early December, and sometimes these things happen even when you're careful. I never questioned it. Why would I? But now, looking at these papers, at Aunt Patricia's letter, the gaps in that night took on a different shape, a darker shape. I drove to the Riverside Inn that afternoon. It was still there, a bit more run down than I remembered, but still operating. The young woman at the desk looked bored when I asked about their record keeping. We keep digital records going back 20 years, but I can't just give out guest information. I'm not asking about guests, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. I'm asking about myself. Sarah Coleman, December 23rd. I gave her the year. She typed something into her computer, then frowned. That's weird. There's a note attached to this reservation. A note? Yeah, from the management at the time. Says the room charges were reversed and compensated due to a complaint, but the complaint details aren't here. Just says it was resolved privately with the settlement. A settlement? My mouth dried. That's all I can see. You'd have to contact our corporate office for more details, and honestly, they probably don't have records that old about settlements. Sorry. I thanked her in that, my mind racing. A complaint. A settlement. Resolved privately? I sat in my car in the hotel parking lot and called my mother. Mom, I said when she answered, I need to ask you something about the night of Clara's office party, the year before Emma was born. There was silence on the other end. Then, quietly, what about it? You know, don't you? You've always known? I heard her take a shaky breath. Sarah, some things are better left. Mom, please. I found Aunt Patricia's letter. I've seen the papers. I need to hear it from someone who loves me. She was crying now. I could hear it in her voice. Clara called me that night, late. She was hysterical. Said there'd been an incident. Said James that he'd made a terrible mistake. That you were too drunk to remember and that it would be better if you never knew. The world tilted. I gripped the steering wheel to steady myself. She said James was beside himself with guilt. Said it would destroy both marriages, both families. And then when you turned up pregnant and you thought it was Marcus's, Clara saw a solution, a way to keep the family together, to give Emma parents who could raise her, to give you your freedom, to keep James's mistake from ruining everything. Mistake, I repeated, the word bitter in my mouth. I wanted to tell you so many times, but Clara convinced me, she convinced all of us, that it was better this way, that you were happy not knowing, that Emma was happy, that the truth would only bring pain. All of us? Who else knows? Your father, Patricia figured it out on her own. She always was too smart for her own good. And I think James knows, deep down, but Clara's never confirmed it to him. She's maintained the story that Emma's biological father was unknown. I thought about James, about the way he looked at Emma over the years with that confused recognition. He saw himself in her, but couldn't admit it, or wouldn't, or Clara wouldn't let him. I have to go, Mom. Sarah, please, don't do anything rash. Think of Emma. I've thought of nothing but Emma for 17 years. And I hung up. I drove home in a daze, the pieces of my life rearranging themselves into a picture I'd never wanted to see. Every memory took on a different cast. Clara's insistence on adoption, not generosity, but covering up. Her control over the narrative, not protectiveness, but guilt. The way she'd sometimes look at me with something I thought was gratitude, but now recognized as fear. Fear that I'd remember,
Fear that I'd find out. When I got home, Clara was waiting on my porch. She looked older than her 43 years, shadows under her eyes, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She knew. Somehow. She knew that I knew. Aunt Patricia's lawyer called me, said there might be some confusion about some documents. Confusion, I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we're calling it? Sarah, please, let me explain. I unlocked my door and walked inside, leaving it open behind me. She followed, closing it gently. Would you like some tea? I asked, moving to the kitchen because I needed something to do with my hands. Sarah, I'm making tea. Chamomile, Mom's recipe. You can talk while I do. She sat at my kitchen table, in the same spot where I'd found the papers that morning. I kept my back to her as I filled the kettle, got out the cups, moved through the familiar motions. It wasn't supposed to happen. The party, James had too much to drink. You had too much to drink. I was angry at him about something stupid. I don't even remember what now. I stayed late at the party to make him jealous. Flirting with my boss. Such a childish thing to do. The water boiled. I poured it over the tea bags, watching the water turn golden. He told me the next morning. He was crying. I'd never seen James cry before. He said he'd taken you to your room, that you'd been sick, that he'd stayed to make sure you were okay, and then he didn't know how it happened, that one moment he was holding your hair bag while you threw up, and the next... Stop, I said quietly. Just stop.
He wanted to tell you. He wanted to tell everyone, to confess, to beg forgiveness. But I knew it would destroy everything. Our marriage, your relationship with me, the family, everything. I turned to face her, holding the 2 cups of tea, set one in front of her, sat down across from her with mine. So you decided to steal my baby instead? No, the word burst out of her. No, it wasn't like that. When you found out you were pregnant and thought it was Marcus's, it seemed like fate, like a solution. You didn't want to be a mother. You said so yourself over and over. And we couldn't have children. The doctors had told us that just a month before the party. James's sperm count was too low. Basically impossible, they said. She laughed bitterly. Apparently not impossible, just impossible with me. So Emma is James's daughter, his and yours. Clara's voice broke. I've raised my husband's child with another woman, my own sister. I've smiled and taken family photos and pretended everything was normal while looking at the living proof of the worst night of my marriage. Then why? I asked. Why did you do it? Because I loved her the moment I saw her, Clara said, tears streaming down her face now. Because she was innocent in all of this. Because you're my sister and I couldn't let you raise a child born from that night. Because I thought I could be strong enough to love her despite everything. And I was. I am. She is my daughter, Sarah. Maybe not biologically, but in every way that matters. She's my daughter too, I said quietly. And you took that choice away from me. You took away my right to know what happened to me. You took away my right to decide what to do about it. I know, Clara whispered. God, I know. I've lived with that guilt every single day. Every time you visit, every time Emma laughs, and she sounds just like you. Every time she draws something beautiful and I see your talent in her hands, I know what I took from you. And James? How does he live with it? Clara was quiet for a long moment. He doesn't know she's his. I stared at her. What?
I never told him. When you got pregnant, I let him believe what you believed, that it was Marcus's. He was so relieved that you didn't remember that night, that there wouldn't be consequences. When I suggested adoption, he agreed immediately. I think partly out of guilt, wanting to do something to help you. He's been a wonderful father to Emma, but he doesn't know. He doesn't know she's actually his. The full weight of Clara's deception hit me then. She lied to everyone, to me, to James, to Emma. She'd built an entire family on a foundation of secrets, maintaining the lie through sheer force of will. "I've wanted to tell you so many times," Clara said, "especially lately as Emma gets older and asks more questions. But how do you start that conversation? How do you destroy your daughter's whole understanding of who she is? How do you tell your sister that your husband, that her child's father—" She couldn't finish. We sat there in silence, the tea cooling between us, 17 years of lies spread out like a map we couldn't fold back up. "What do we do now?" Clara finally asked. It was the question I'd been asking myself all day. What do you do when you discover your whole life has been built on someone else's deception? When the child you gave up was never really given up, but taken? When your sister, who you trusted more than anyone, has been your betrayer all along? "I don't know," I said, honestly. "Emma deserves the truth, but the truth will destroy her. It will destroy everything," Clara agreed. "Our family, everything we've built." I thought about Emma, about to graduate high school, planning for college, believing she knew who she was. I thought about James, living with guilt for a night he couldn't fully remember, but raising a daughter he didn't know was his. "Aunt Patricia was right," I said. "The dead can tell truths the living can't bear to speak." Clara reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. "What are you going to do?" I looked at my sister, really looked at her, saw the fear, the guilt, the desperate love for the daughter she'd raised, saw the gilded cage she'd built for herself, being mother to her husband's child with another woman. In trying to protect everyone, she'd imprisoned everyone, including herself.
I didn't answer Clara that day. I couldn't. Instead, I asked her to leave, and she did, walking to her car like she was carrying the weight of the world. Maybe she was. We both were now. For 3 days, I didn't leave my apartment. I called in sick to work and spent hours looking through old photos on my computer. Emma as a baby in Clara's arms. Emma taking her first steps in Clara and James's living room. Emma at 5, missing her front teeth, grinning at the camera. Emma at 10, holding up a painting she'd made. A garden that looked so much like the ones I used to paint when I was her age. I studied James in these photos too, looking for signs I'd missed. The way he sometimes stood a little apart from Emma like he was afraid to get too close. The way his smile never quite reached his eyes in family portraits. The way he always seemed to be looking at Clara for cues on how to act around their daughter. On the 4th day, James came to see me. He stood at my door looking haggard and lost. "Clara told me you know about that night," he said without preamble. "May I come in?" I let him in, though part of me wanted to slam the door in his face. We sat in my living room, two people who'd shared something neither of us fully remembered, bound together by a child neither of us had truly raised. "I need to know," I said, "what you remember." James rubbed his face with both hands. "Fragments, pieces. You were so drunk and I was angry at Clara. She'd been flirting with that man from her office all night. I wanted to hurt her, I think. Or maybe I just wanted to feel wanted. I don't know anymore. I've spent 17 years trying to understand how I became the kind of man who could—" He stopped, unable to continue. "I remember helping you to your room. I remember you saying you missed Marcus, that you felt so alone. I remember holding you while you cried. And then things get blurry. I woke up in your room the next morning and you were still asleep, and I knew something terrible had happened.
But you didn't remember, or at least you never said anything, so I convinced myself maybe it was a dream, a nightmare. It wasn't, I said quietly. No, it wasn't. Clara told me, finally, about Emma, about who she really is. I looked at him sharply. When? 3 days ago, after she saw you, she came home and told me everything. He laughed, but it was a broken sound. 17 years. 17 years I've raised my own daughter thinking she was someone else's. 17 years Clara has kept this secret. How do you feel about it? I asked, genuinely curious. James was quiet for a long moment. Relieved, he finally said, and the honesty of it surprised me. Is that terrible? I'm relieved because I've always felt this connection to Emma that I couldn't explain, like looking in a mirror sometimes. Clara always said it was just projection, that all adoptive parents feel that way. But deep down, I knew. I think I've always known. And Clara? How do you feel about what she did? I don't know, he admitted. She lied to me, to you, to Emma, but she gave me the chance to be a father when I thought I'd never have that. She raised Emma beautifully, even knowing what she represented. That takes a kind of strength I can't imagine. Or a kind of delusion, I said. Maybe both, James agreed. But Sarah, I need you to know, if I could go back, if I could undo that night. But you can't, I interrupted. None of us can. We can only figure out how to move forward. What about Emma? What do we tell her? It was the question that had been haunting me. Emma, 17 years old, about to start her adult life, thinking she knew who she was. Did she have the right to know? Did we have the right to keep it from her? I've been thinking about that, about what's best for her, not what's easiest for us, but what's truly best for Emma. James nodded, waiting. She knows something's not right. She's always known. Kids sense these things, even when we think we're protecting them. The question is whether knowing the truth would help her or harm her. Clara thinks it would destroy her. Clara's been wrong before, I said, perhaps more harshly than I intended. But she knows Emma better than anyone. She's been her mother every single day for 17 years. That has to count for something. That evening, I asked Emma to meet me for coffee, just the two of us, something we'd never really done before. She agreed, curious but not suspicious. We met at a little cafe downtown, the kind with mismatched chairs and local art on the walls. Emma looked so grown up sitting across from me, about to graduate, about to leave for college. She had my nose, yes, but she had James's eyes, now that I knew to look for it. Those deep brown eyes that held more intelligence than he usually let show. Aunt Sarah, she said, stirring sugar into her latte, this is weird. Nice, but weird. You seem different. Different how? She studied me. Sadder, but also, I don't know, more real, I guess, like you're not pretending something. The insight startled me. You're very perceptive, she said with a small smile. Artists usually are. Mom always says I get that from you. Your mom says that? All the time. She says I'm like you in a lot of ways. Sometimes, she paused, then continued, sometimes when she says it, she looks sad, like it hurts her somehow. My heart ached for Clara then, for the complicated pain she'd been living with all these years. Em, I said carefully, what would you want if you could know everything about where you came from? Would you want to know, even if it was complicated and painful? Emma was quiet, really thinking about it. I used to think, yes, absolutely. I used to lie awake at night imagining my birth parents, making up stories about who they were and why they gave me up. But lately, she shrugged. Lately, I've been thinking that maybe some stories are better left untold. Maybe the family you have is more important than the family you came from. That's very mature. Or maybe I'm just scared, she admitted. What if the truth is worse than not knowing? What if my birth parents were terrible people? What if there's some awful reason they gave me up? What if they weren't terrible? I asked softly. What if they were just young and confused and trying to do the right thing in an impossible situation? Emma looked at me with those intelligent eyes. You know something. It wasn't a question. I know that you are loved, I said carefully. I know that every single person in our family would do anything to protect you. I know that your mom, Clara, is the best mother you could have asked for. And I know that sometimes the truth is less important than the love. But you do know something about my birth parents. I chose my words like picking steps across a frozen lake. What I know is that your story, your origin, it's more complicated than what you've been told, but it doesn't change who you are. You're Emma. You're brilliant and kind and talented. You're going to go to college and make art and change the world. That's what matters. Emma reached across the table and took my hand. You know it's you. The world stopped. What? I whispered. My birth mother. It's you. I've known for a while now. Not known, but felt it. The way you look at me sometimes, the way Mom gets tense when we're together, the way Grandma tears up when she sees us laughing together. It's you, isn't it? I couldn't speak. I just held her hand and nodded. Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she was smiling. I thought so. I actually took one of those DNA tests, the ones Mom didn't want me to take. I used birthday money from Grandma. I haven't gotten the results yet, but I know what they'll say. I'm not angry, she said quickly. I mean, I was for a little while, but then I thought about it, really thought about it. You were young, right? And Aunt Clara, Mom, she couldn't have kids. It makes sense. It's actually kind of beautiful keeping it in the family like that. There's more to it, I said quietly. Things that are complicated and painful and...
I don't need to know everything, Emma interrupted. Not right now. Maybe not ever. What I need to know is, did you want me? Even for a moment, did you want to keep me? Yes, I said, the truth pouring out of me. The moment you were born, the moment I held you, I wanted to keep you more than I'd ever wanted anything. But I was 23 and alone and terrified. And Clara could give you everything I couldn't. She has, Emma said, squeezing my hand. She's been an amazing mom. I love her completely. That won't change, no matter what the DNA test says. She raised me. She stayed up with me when I was sick, taught me to ride a bike, cried at every school play. She's my mom. Yes, I agreed. She is. But you're something too, Emma continued. Not mom, but something. Can we figure out what that is? Together? I nodded, unable to speak through the tears. Does she know that I know? Mom? No. She's terrified you'll find out. Because she thinks I'll hate her? Because she loves you so much that losing you would destroy her. Emma was quiet for a moment. I need time to process this, to figure out how I feel before I talk to her. Is that okay? Of course. And Aunt Sarah, my biological father, is it someone I know? This was the hardest part, the part that could truly shatter everything. That's not my story to tell, I said carefully. And honestly, it might be a story better left untold. Emma studied my face. That bad? That complicated. She nodded slowly. Okay, one truth at a time, I guess. We finished our coffee, talking about safer things. Her college plans, her art, her hopes for the future.
When we parted, she hugged me tight and I smelled her shampoo, the same brand I'd used at her age. "Thank you," she whispered, "for letting me go, for giving me to Mom. It was the right thing, even if it hurt." After she left, I sat in my car and cried for an hour, grieved for the daughter I'd never raised, for the years of lies, for the innocence we'd all lost. But also, surprisingly, I felt relief. The truth was out there now. Or at least part of it. Emma knew and the world hadn't ended. That evening, Clara called. "Emma knows," I told her before she could speak. The silence on the other end stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "How?" she asked, her voice small. "She figured it out, Clara. Your daughter is brilliant." "Your daughter," Clara corrected, and I could hear she was crying. "Our daughter," I said. "She's ours, Clara. Yours because you raised her, mine because I gave birth to her, and ours because we're family, and that's what family does. We share." Does she hate me?" "No, she loves you. She was very clear about that. She's your mom. That's not changing." "And James? Does she know about James?" "No, and I don't think she needs to. Not now. Maybe not ever." Clara was quiet for a moment. "He wants to tell her. He says she has a right to know." "Maybe she does. But maybe she also has a right to peace, to start her adult life without that weight. Let her get through college. Find her footing in the world. If she asks directly, we don't lie. But if she doesn't, we let sleeping dogs lie. We let her choose when she's ready for the whole truth. Sarah, I'm sorry. I'm so desperately sorry for everything. For that night, for the lies, for stealing your choice. I told myself I was protecting everyone, but I think I was just protecting myself. I know. I'm angry. I'll be angry for a long time, but I also understand. You were trying to build something beautiful out of something broken, and you did. Emma is beautiful, Clara. The way you raised her, the person she's become, that's beautiful."
"Can you forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Not today. Maybe not tomorrow. But someday, I think. For Emma's sake, if nothing else. We're going to be in each other's lives forever. We might as well find a way to make peace with what we've done. And what we haven't done, Clara added softly. Yes, that too. It's been 2 years since that afternoon with the lawyer's letter and the adoption papers. 2 years since my world cracked open and had to be rebuilt, piece by careful piece. Emma is in college now, studying art and psychology. She says she wants to understand how people work, how families work, how love can be both healing and harmful at the same time. She comes home for holidays and we all gather at my parents' house like we always have. But now there's a different quality to our gatherings. More honest, more tender. Like we've all agreed to stop pretending everything is perfect and started accepting that it's enough to just be together. Clara and James are still married. They went to counseling, separately and together. James told me once, during a rare moment when we were alone, that learning Emma was his biological daughter had actually helped him forgive himself for that night. I can't regret it completely, because it gave us Emma, but I can be sorry for how it happened, for what it took from you. I appreciated that, the complexity of it, the acknowledgement that terrible things can lead to beautiful outcomes without the terrible things becoming acceptable. Clara and I have lunch every Wednesday now. It started as her idea, a way to rebuild what was broken between us. At first, those lunches were stilted, full of careful conversation and avoided topics. But slowly we found our way back to each other. Not to where we were before, that innocence is gone forever, but to something new. Something that acknowledges the pain, but chooses connection anyway. Last month, Emma asked me about her biological father. We were in my apartment, working on a painting together, a garden scene, of course. Gardens have always been where I find my peace.
I got the DNA results back a while ago, she said casually, adding shadows to a rose. They were interesting. My hand stilled on my brush. Oh? James is my biological father, she said, not looking at me. I figured it out from the percentages, the family matches. It explains a lot, actually. Emma, she continued, still painting, I'm not going to say anything, to him or to Mom. They're working so hard on their marriage and they're happy now. Happier than they've been in years, Mom says. Why would I destroy that? Don't you deserve the truth? I asked. She smiled, that wise smile that made her look older than her 19 years. I have the truth. I know where I came from. But Aunt Sarah, families are built on more than truth. They're built on choice. The choice to love, to stay, to forgive. Mom chose to raise me knowing what she knew. Dad, James, chose to love me not knowing what he didn't know. You chose to give me to them. Those choices matter more than DNA. When did you become so wise? I asked, my throat tight with emotion. I had good teachers, she said. 3 parents, even if one had to love me from a distance. That's what she calls me now, sometimes, when we're alone. My 3rd parent, the one who loved me enough to let go, she says. It breaks my heart and heals it at the same time. I've started dating someone recently. His name is Michael, and he's a landscape architect who understands my obsession with gardens. I told him about Emma on our 3rd date, the whole messy truth of it. He listened without judgment, then said, You've all found a way to love each other through impossible circumstances. That's not a tragedy. That's a miracle. Maybe he's right. Maybe that's what family is. Not the perfect structure we imagine, but the imperfect one we build with the materials we have. We took a night of pain and confusion and betrayal, and somehow through 17 years of lies and 2 years of truth, we've built something that holds us all. Aunt Patricia's estate included more than just those papers. She left Emma her entire art collection, worth more than any of us had imagined. She left Clara a letter that Clara has never shared with me, but whatever it said, helped Clara forgive herself a little. And she left me her garden, an actual garden, behind her Florida house, with roses and jasmine and a little bench where you can sit and watch the sunset over the water. I go there sometimes to think and to paint and to remember. To remember the girl I was at 23, so lost and frightened. To remember the woman Clara was, desperate for a child and willing to live with an impossible secret. To remember Emma as a baby, perfect and small, and mine for just a moment. But mostly I go there to appreciate what we've all become. Not the family we imagined when I was young, but the family that exists, built on a foundation of mistakes and lies, but standing strong now in truth and forgiveness. We've learned that love isn't just about truth. Sometimes it's about knowing which truths to tell and which to hold. Sometimes it's about accepting that the worst thing that ever happened to you also led to the best thing in your life. Emma graduates next year. She's planning to travel after, to see the world like I did at her age, but different. She knows who she is, where she comes from, what she's carrying with her. She has 3 parents who love her, grandparents who adore her, and a story that's complicated, but complete. Will you come with me, she asked last week, to Europe? Just for a few weeks? Won't that be weird, traveling with your aunt, mother, whatever I am? It'll be perfect, she said. We can paint gardens. You can show me where you went when you were young. We can talk or not talk. Just be together. And maybe that's what healing looks like. Not forgetting the pain, not pretending it didn't happen, but choosing to move forward anyway. Choosing to paint new gardens over the ashes of the old ones. Choosing to love each other not despite our broken places, but because of them. Because we've all been broken, and we've all found ways to put ourselves back together. And we've done it without letting go of each other. The morning rain has stopped now. The sun is coming through my kitchen window, lighting up the steam from my tea. Clara will be here soon for our Wednesday lunch. Emma will call tonight from college. James will wave if he sees me at the grocery store. A careful friendship building between us. My parents will have Sunday dinner way for all of us. The same, as always, but different too. This is my family. Not the one I imagined when I was young, but the one that exists. Built on a foundation of mistakes and lies, but standing strong now in truth and forgiveness. We've learned that love isn't just about truth. Sometimes it's about knowing which truths to tell and which to hold. Sometimes it's about accepting that the worst thing that ever happened to you also led to the best thing in your life.